I'm Daniel.
I'm Jay-Z.
And this is Just My DIY.
Much to Daniel's delight, my obsession with learning how to arrange and make bouquets with real flowers has continued.
And boy, am I so delighted that I wanted to preserve these very aromatic memories for, well, as long as it takes to make a few more projects with them. Which brings us to today's project, a custom homemade floral press.
And since Johnson Plastics Plus sent us this goodie box full of sublimation materials a little while ago, we decided to make the world's prettiest flower press by using a piece of sublimation acrylic. Now, if you have watched our how to sublimate on acrylic video before, we have changed a few things, so make sure you watch this one a whole way through.
So y'all should hang out while we press on.
There you go.
So first up, we got to do our sublimation printing.
And for that, we're going to head over to our graphics program. Now we're going to crop it to the right shape, which is going to be a square. And so once we get the design set into a square, we're then going to move on to resizing it. We are going to size this to 12 by 12, which is a little larger than the area that we need, but we do want this to be a little oversized to the area. And do note, we're working in Photoshop. You don't have to have Photoshop, any graphics program will do. We're going to go into our print settings, and the important thing is the paper size that we're using is 13 by 19, and then the quality settings are most important. We're going to use a matte paper setting because that puts out the most ink and best quality. That's going to give us the best sublimation print, and then we're going to hit print.
Now hitting print is going to take you over to our sublimation printer. This is an EcoTank 15000 from Epson that we have converted by installing sublimation ink from the beginning, and this is being printed out on Johnson Plastics Plus 13 by 19 sheets of sublimation paper. It is important to know that when you do print and sublimation, it is going to come out a little light and bland looking, but the actual act of sublimation will brighten it right up.
So don't worry if your prints look a little weird. Now that we have this printed, we're going to move on to actually sublimating the acrylic.
So what you see me doing here first is putting the thing we're sublimating over the image, and I am marking the edges with a fold. We are not going to tape this, and we want this to be larger than the thing we were sublimating on. This will help prevent any sort of imprinting of things that were not meant to be there.
That's right. When acrylic heats up, it has so many quirks. It takes imprints, it likes to warp, so you're going to see a lot of things that we do to prevent those issues. But first and foremost, we're going to peel off the plastic sheeting on both sides and keep our hands off of the acrylic.
And once we have our hands off of the acrylic and it's laid out, we can use those edges that I scored on the paper to kind of align it up, fold our butcher paper over it that is acting as our blowout paper, put it in our heat press, and 365 for 105 seconds does the trick.
Now this next step is so important. Like we said, acrylic likes to warp as it's cooling down, so we have a smooth sheet of silicone down on our table, and you're going to see us stack a lot of things on top of it to keep it flat as it cools. The first thing we're going to put on top of it is a smooth board, and then we're going to have a wood round that's going to help us distribute the weight of Bobo, our well-trained kettlebell.
Who is about 36 pounds. After it cools off, we're going to go ahead and remove everything off of it and check to see how well we did.
And look at that beautiful sublimation. There's no imprints. And now we're going to move on to the next step, which is adding the holes and cutting it to the size, which is optional. Very important. We are going to use a laser, but you do not have to have a laser to do this. We're going to show you two different methods to make this work.
But while you are going to go ahead and do it in the laser, you want to mask both sides of the project so you can avoid any sort of laser reflection issues or other problems that come about from not masking.
And it may not actually be a bad idea to mask it if you're doing the drill method, because that could probably protect your acrylic as well, because acrylic does like to scratch fairly easily.
Good point. So we're going to align it inside of our laser and tell it to do stuff.
And so we're gonna put holes in it, and because we have the laser, we are gonna cut it to size. You see our Glowforge Pro settings, speed 145, full power. If you don't have the Pro, you have another one of the Glowforge series. You may need to adjust this because this one has a little more power, but these are the settings that work for us. Of course, if you're in the market for a Glowforge, we have a referral link down below. Use that referral link to get up to $500 off your purchase, which will give us a little something in return.
Otherwise, we're going to keep cutting a couple of extra pieces of white acrylic. This is going to act as a center and a backing board to the whole construct.
A lot of people don't use a center board in their flower presses, but because we're making our own, we can do that. We think that's going to help give us more evenness throughout the pressing process. So hey, when you DIY your press, you get to improve the product, right? So we're gonna do that, and if you don't have a laser, you're gonna do the other method. You can use something like wood, which is really easy to cut with fairly common tools that you can get your hands on.
So we're gonna go over to the drilling method now. Now the drilling method is have a drill.
Step one.
Have some drill bits.
Step two.
And you want to make sure that one of those drill bits is big enough to be the size of your bolt and slightly larger. So you can see this is the drill bit we'll be using for that. You like to use a smaller pilot bit so we can use it as an appropriate guide. Our first one we're setting in at about a 1/2 inch for the center of the bolt, and we're just using the pilot bit to mark it.
And the pilot bit really does just help the big bolt not go on safari while you're drilling through. So as we said, acrylic scratches really easily, so we use a microfiber cloth and a clamp to make sure that that doesn't happen. But if you have the masking on there, that will also help.
Now this 1/2 inch in hole, we would say it was just a little bit too close to the edge. It makes it a little bendier than we like to have seen it. So we're going to improve this process by maybe using a 3/4 of an inch on center hole.
And the important thing is when you're drilling through acrylic is to make sure that you go quickly. A drill will heat up as it's drilling through, and heat and acrylic equals some melting, which creates ridges, and you don't want ridges. So go quickly as you're drilling through your acrylic.
So now we're going to work on the actual piece of acrylic with some trim.
This is some faux leather that we got from the Dollar Tree, and we are going to use this to put a border around our acrylic. We're going to do that by using this double-sided 3M adhesive and a squeegee to make this adhesive faux leather. Now, the trim not only kind of elevates the look of this press, sometimes acrylic can get a little sharp on the edges, so it is nice to put something on it, but also especially if you don't have a laser and you weren't able to cut down the acrylic to size, you may have seen on your clear acrylic, the clear border around the sublimation acrylic, that you also had some sublimation there. This covers that up. So we got our calipers that we measured the width of the border that we want to have to wrap around. Mark that in a few different spots, and we're using a straight edge and the Cricut True Control knife, i.e. X-Acto, to cut those strips out.
We did cut several of these strips, more than what we actually needed, because, you know, in case something doesn't come out perfect or it gets stuck to something you don't intend it to get stuck to after you peel the backing off. Don't ask questions.
I feel like that may have happened a few times.
So once we do, I'm going to eyeball this. It was close enough that I was able to just do this. And of course, the board we're working upon was also really nice to work with to make sure we got nice and even.
Yeah, those self-healing cutting mats are nice, and they have a grid.
And we're going to try to set it up to get it to stick working from the center out, so you can massage everything into a nice, smooth, even plane, and cut the corners at about 45 degrees. And of course, we're going to mate it by continuing this process. Always just cutting it a little bit larger, and again working it in. I'm being careful not to touch the acrylic. We don't like cleaning our acrylic anymore, and the best way to do that is to never touch it.
Well, we don't like cleaning the acrylic with alcohol. So in previous videos we did use alcohol, but some acrylics don't react well to alcohol. They splinter or they fog. So we stick with just soap and water or a microfiber cloth to clean acrylic now, but the best method is just don't put your paws all over them.
Especially if they're greasy.
Yes.
Like Jay-Z's.
Hey!
What? I speak the truth. But you can see how beautiful that came out. So we got to move on to cutting the inside pieces, both the cardboard and the paper.
And we're going to do that. Obviously, always save your boxes, especially the big ones, because they turn out great for crafting. We're just using a box cutter here to cut down some pieces. So yes, we're going to put the cardboard in the laser. When you have a laser, it's super efficient, but you do not obviously have to have a laser to do this. The big thing here with the cardboard is we cut the holes way bigger than the bolts because we didn't want the bolts just making extra lint and little pips from the cardboard as they went up and down on them. So that was the big thing there, but cut lots of cardboard pieces to go inside. And you see, that's exactly what we did. And now we're moving on to the paper. The paper that we use is butcher paper because you want like an absorbent paper. You don't want one that's going to stick. You don't need specialty papers. Honestly, this white butcher paper is so handy in the craft room. Again, everything that we use will be linked down below. And we just eyeballed this and we chopped the corners so they don't interfere with the bolts. And just cut a bunch of pieces of paper that will fit inside our press. Probably the easiest step.
It seemed like it.
Yeah.
It also didn't work well on the laser because it was too curly.
Yeah, it's true.
And now we get to do all the fun. All of the work leads to pressing the flowers.
Yay, the pretty stuff. Yay. Okay, so we have everything laid out here. We didn't know shorter bolts, longer bolts, and of course we're going to go with the longer bolts. And so we're going to put a washer down. This is on the back board. As you see, we did trim all of our boards just for aesthetic reasons. And then we're going to drop the bolts through. And Daniel's going to help me flip it. And now we are going to put cardboard, paper, and then start laying out some flowers. Best to put them face down, and also
it's best to keep ones of similar thickness together. This helps keep your pressure more evenly distributed during the pressing.
And make sure you space them out. You're going to be tempted to try to cram as many on one sheet as you possibly can, but if they end up touching, then they are going to probably meld together, and you don't want that. So keep in mind cardboard, paper, flowers, paper, cardboard every time. You'll see we're actually putting our center board in here. Again, that's to keep the pressure even throughout. And we're just going to keep layering this stuff in and go for it. They always say it's best to press the flowers when they're as fresh as possible. And, we like to enjoy our flowers for a little bit and then press them when they're getting close to the end. Then we put the top on.
And then we're going to put our washers on, and that's going to help protect it from the wing nuts from marring the surface of the acrylic again. Mm-hmm. But you do not want to tighten this too excessively because, hey, it's a little gradual day-by-day process. And
if you just crank it down, you could actually just disintegrate your flowers when they're fresh, and you don't want to do that. But look at how gorgeous this is. This is so pretty. And so not only are you get to enjoy fresh flowers, and then you get to press them, you get a beautiful flower press in which to do that. And as you see, everything's nice and even on the pressure, and it just works so well. I love our little flower press.
Not as much as I love you.
Oh. We hope this video was helpful for you. Stay tuned to our social channels because we're going to show you guys how these flowers turned out. And also we're going to be testing some other methods of drying and preserving flowers, such as microwave and silica gel, and a few other ways as well.
Now, in the meantime, if you like the video, you should go ahead and give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and ring the bell. If you have any pressing questions, feel free to write them down in the comment line. And of course, know that everything we use to do this is listed down in the description.
Also in the description, links to all of our social handles. That's where you guys can connect with us to stay tuned on everything that happens with these flowers. Also, a link to our Patreon. Please connect with us over there if you'd like to give us a few dollars each month. That'll help us keep creating great content. And of course, don't forget to check out our blog, justmydiy.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time.